everyone. Thanks for checking out the Indy Handshake Wrestling Podcast. My name is Paul Ponte. I am joined today by 1/3 of the caution, the link to the future, Anton Voorhees.
Yeah, that's me. Hi.
Hi, how you doing? And if I go judging by your Twitter, at one time, Zach Morris hair enthusiast.
Yes, I was. I bleached my hair like everyone else in 2001, right?
Yeah, that was I saw that. I was like, look, that is some Zach Morris curtains he's got going on right now.
That was the look. That was the thing.
Love it. So I've had a lot of your fellow Hoodslam people on here.
Yeah.
So we'll get into talking about that in a little bit. But first, I want to go back to the beginning. I want to know how you discovered the world of independent pro wrestling.
Sure. So, growing up, I discovered professional wrestling through my dad, who turned it on one day when I was super young. And I can curse on here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, my dad turns it on. He's like, look at this stupid shit. And I was like, I love this stupid shit. This is amazing. And I didn't know a lot of people that liked wrestling. And then the further I went in school, the more I kind of was like, oh, this guy likes wrestling. Hey, let's talk some wrestling. And by the time I got to high school, that's when wrestling blew up, the late 90s, early 2000s, NWO shirts were everywhere. You couldn't go to the mall without seeing some kind of wrestling shirt, which was crazy for someone that had to find wrestling friends growing up.
Oh yeah. Before, we're about the same age. I'm taking it. And I feel like if you liked wrestling when you were a kid, you were in a very small window of people who were other people at school would be like, ugh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everyone was Mr. DX Suckit and NWO and everyone gave a shit.
Yeah, I remember at the Super Bowl, they showed the team and they're all like, yeah. And I was like, this is insane. This is insane. So yeah, in high school, a bunch of my friends got into wrestling, and like a lot of kids that liked wrestling, we started wrestling in our backyard and stuff like that. And once we graduated, we started hearing about, some shows that were coming around, there was an APW show at a fairground or something. And so we went, and we were those obnoxious fans that you hate. We were the guys that were just pulling attention onto ourselves, just trying to heckle the bad guys, but cheer the faces and whatnot, not knowing the terminology at the time. We then found Brawl in Antioch. And we found WCWA, which was in Pleasant Hill or Concord, and just started going to those shows as often as we could find them, especially the WCWA shows, because they were monthly and we knew where they were every month. So it was just Brawl shows kind of moved around a little bit. But yeah, WCWA, we knew where to go. And we started noticing the Brawl guys wrestle at WCWA shows, except they're different characters. That's weird. And then one of my buddies was like, hey man, there's a wrestling school. It just opened up, and that guy Hellfire that we've seen at shows, runs the school. And, whether we can be wrestlers or not, at least we should try it out to say that we tried to become professional wrestlers. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so we signed up together, and we went through a week of it. And then my buddy was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to be a wrestler, because I am that codependent where I can't picture myself doing it by myself. And one of the other guys at the school, Sean Sims, I came in and was like, hey, yeah, my buddy's not coming back, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do this by myself. And he was like, nah, fuck that. You're my buddy now. We're going to do this together. And, from that day forward, it was Anton and Sean Sims. We were the two people that were just trying to make the most out of being at training. We would go through training, and training would stop, and everyone would be getting ready to go home. And me and Sims are getting back in the ring. Oh, let me try this thing on you. So without Sean Sims, there would not be an Anton Voorhees, because I would have just given up when my when my high school buddy gave up. So that's how I got into independent wrestling.
And what kind of training did you get? And this was at Devil Mountain Wrestling, right?
Devil Mountain Wrestling, yeah. It was good. It was interesting. Like now that I've gone to like to see how other people train, and like I've been a head trainer and whatnot. It's interesting to look back at my training and see how like laid back it really was. Like Hellfire, was a big guy that you just like, you looked at him and you're like, I don't want to say no to this guy. I'll just do whatever he tells me. But now that I've like seen other trainings, I'm like, man, we had it really easy. Like Hellfire was pretty laid back, and he also did things differently than like anyone else I've ever met in wrestling. Like I still do hammerlocks differently than I've ever seen anyone else do a hammerlock. I'm just like, oh man, you guys, I don't do that shit. Mine's in here. And he also like taught, he's like, yeah, I did a little bit of lucha, so I suplex on either side. And I was like, which side do most other people? He's like, left. I'm like, I'm just going to do left. But like Sim still does suplexes on the right, and everyone's just like, why do you do them that way? He's like, because Hellfire told me to. But other than that, like training was great. Hellfire definitely like saw that I was fairly capable and started like challenging me and was just like, hey man, let me see if you can do this. And I'm like, sure, let's see if I can do it. And like, so it was really helpful there. With like not worrying about like a big guy trying to teach a little guy how to do something, because I was like 160 pounds at the time. But he was like all about like, hey man, can you do a moonsault? Hey, can you do a Hurricane Rana? Hey, can you do this like double rotation head scissor? Like I'm just like, I don't know, let's find out. So training for me went really well. Like I felt like I was consistently being pushed to be better, and that's also just how I am in general. It's just like I don't want to ever be complacent. So training for me like was just a constant like, be better than this. You're good, but be better than this. You're not the shits, but be better than this.
It's so interesting to hear. Like, I love how trainers all have like little quirks of things that the way they like to do things. Like when we talked to Mike Modest in the little documentary thing we have coming out later this year, he mentioned Rick Thompson training when he would train people at APW. Like everyone was doing the crooked arm drag. Like everyone would have their arm locked like this. And he's like, hold on. What happens if I straighten my arm? And the guy just falls to the ground. He goes, this is stupid. No one should do this. So he only did the other style where you like hook them completely.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, that's the only arm drags we do at the school. We don't do the other one. He was like very specific. And I was like, that's so interesting that like some people like they gravitate and they pick very specific things. And they're like, no, this is one thing. This is how we do things.
Oh, no, definitely. Like I have pet peeves too that like I used to teach to my students. Like I hate when people just choke people. I'm like, have you ever seen a movie where someone chokes someone? It's because they're trying to murder them. Like, are you that mad that you're trying to kill a person in the ring? Like, don't fucking choke them unless you're trying to kill them. That's my philosophy.
Yeah. It's wrestling. You should only do like, holds, submissions, trying to poke out someone's eye for the WWE, whatever. Like it's,
there are standards and practices.
Yeah. Very simple things. But so when you joined up, what style were you looking to emulate when you started? And then how did that kind of morph and what did it end up being?
Here's the thing that like I discovered is I was super into like WCW cruiserweights, WWF, WWE, like spectacle, and ECW just beat the shit out of each other and like wrestle your ass off. And so I gravitated to just like finding the things that I really liked. And I guess if I were to try to compare it to like a wrestler, it'd be like, Lance Storm didn't wrestle a specific style. Like RVD like didn't wrestle a specific style. Like he was kind of a high flyer, but I wouldn't classify RVD as like, he's just a high flyer. Like he did everything. He was doing gorilla press moonsaults and shit like that. So I tried to kind of do that, and I picked and chose like, well, I want to do this move and I want to do this move. And then the more I started doing it, the more I realized like a lot of people had that philosophy. And I was just like, so I came across as very like indie current worker right now. It's just like, yeah, I want to do knee strikes and bicycle kicks and super kicks and like power bombs. It's just like, yeah, so does everyone else. So
Yeah.
what I thought was going to be like my style ended up being like most people's style. So I had to try to figure out how to make things my own and like how to individualize like how I did things, so I could at least say like, yeah, we do the same moves, but I do them differently, I guess.
Yeah. And what was that learning curve like as far as, realizing that kind of thing where you think, okay, maybe I need to up my game a bit as far as the moves?
Sure. I think that I started off in a good place because my first like rivalry was with Sims, and if you know who Sean Sims is, like he's way bigger than me. So it was nice to have a rivalry against someone where it was like, all right, I can't do like whatever I want to this guy. He's huge. So I had to like really learn not only how to like work from underneath, but how to be a heel working from underneath and not have a crowd be like, I don't give a shit about what I'm watching. I don't want to see this guy succeed. He's small and I hate him.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it was definitely a learning curve of being like, well, if I'm little, I want to give him like fucking Hurricane Ranas and shit. And like, if a crowd pops off of that, I'm also not doing my job as a heel because I don't want them to be happy when I get offense in. So the learning curve was like a little difficult to figure out how to do flashy stuff and then get booed for it. So I think that was like the biggest like learning curve for me. And then, as you develop and like start to realize like how to tell a story, you also kind of realize like, oh, I shouldn't just be doing moves. I need to like focus on like what I'm doing in between the moves first. And I think that was like when wrestling started finally like clicking for me of just like, oh, who gives a shit about the moves? Everyone's doing moves. I got to worry about what happens in between the moves. And I feel like that's when like that red light in my head just kind of went off and I was like, oh shit, I get it. 8 years into the business, I get it now.
I can see the matrix. Like I understand now.
Exactly.
And how did you end up hooking up with Hoodslam, meeting Dark Sheik, all that stuff?
Okay, so the very first wrestling show I ever was booked on was a show in McMinnville, Oregon. The company was called BAW. I have no idea what BAW stood for or if it even stood for anything because it didn't say. It was just like BAW. Whatever, BAW. That's what it was, just BAW. And we pretended they were letters. And at that show is where I first met Sheik. Sheik was on that show, tagging with Alexis Derevko, who was one of like the co-trainers at Devil Mountain. And after that, like Sheik started getting booked on all of the Devil Mountain shows. And so, yeah, Sheik and I like developed a friendship really quick because I think Sheik kind of saw like, I'm a little guy being trained by all big guys. So maybe I need to take this person under my wing and show him like, hey, this is how we can do things. And Sheik likes to say that she took me under her wing to be like, hey, you're good. Let's make sure you don't get better than me, is how she likes to tell that story. But yeah, we got hooked up. Derevko then made like a little stable in Devil Mountain called America's Most Hated, which was out at the same time as America's Most Wanted. So not the most original team, but it was him as a Russian, Sheik, and then me as a Canadian. And we were just, the foreign heels. And so, yeah, Sheik and I always had like a pretty close friendship while I was going through wrestling. And then once Hoodslam started, she asked me to be a part of it because it was mainly like a lot of the Devil Mountain crew was the Hoodslam crew. And at the time, I wasn't straight edge because I didn't like saying I'm straight edge. But I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, and I'm very introverted. So the idea of going to like a big wrestling party where people were drinking and smoking, I was like, this sounds like an anxiety attack. I don't want to do this. And so I didn't go to Hoodslam for a long time. And then I stopped wrestling for a little bit and I got divorced and I was ready to like be like, you know what, I should get back into wrestling. And without saying these words specifically, Sheik basically was like, hey, we're doing a video game theme show. Come and be Link from Legend of Zelda. And I'm never going to ask you again if you'll be on Hoodslam. And I was like, yes, I'll do it. And so that's where it started. I did Link, and it got such a big reaction from the crowd that Sheik was just like, all right, just keep being Link. Like, just keep doing this gimmick. And that's how I got there. And I wish I had gotten there sooner, but I just mentally wasn't prepared to like be in a Hoodslam atmosphere at the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure it didn't hurt the two of you connecting since you're both super into geeky culture as well.
That's very fair. Yes.
Yeah. So, is that why she asked for you to be Link? Because she knew that you were obsessed with Legend of Zelda?
Yeah. I mean, I had already had a Legend of Zelda tattoo and was a big Zelda fan. And so, yeah, she was just like, hey, come and do like, it was just to be like, come and do this. I'm taking away all your excuses. So it's not like you didn't know if you could be on the show. It's not like, oh, well, what would I do? She was just like, come here, do this, shut up. So I was just like, okay, I'll do that. That's what I'll do. And, the rest is history, as they say.
And had that actually been your first time being at a Hoodslam show entirely?
No, I went.
Okay.
Because I had reached out to Sam at one point, like when I was kind of thinking of going back, and I let her know, like, hey, I'm thinking about coming back to wrestling. What's up with Hoodslam? And she was very straightforward of like, you've never been to a Hoodslam. Come see a Hoodslam. Like, come and support my fucking show before I put you on it, asshole.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And so, yeah, the first time I went and saw a Hoodslam, it was crazy because I'd been to a lot of independent wrestling shows, and like, they all kind of have the same feel. It feels like home. I've been doing it for years. And then I went to Hoodslam, and it was just different. It had a different vibe, a different feel. Like, there was actual lighting. The lights were low. There was just like smoke wafting through the arena. And it was just like, this is not an independent wrestling show. Like, this is crazy. And then it started, and like, yeah, the whole thing just felt like something special. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it just felt different, special, and something that I was just like, I really want to be a part of this. Like, this is lightning in a bottle. And I don't know how we got here, but this is amazing.
And how did that style of wrestling show, how did, your style going into it, how was that like clash? Like, did that clash at all for you?
It did, but it was also like on my brain because like I started off my stint in like the entertainment field as like an actor. I did theater since I was 7 years old up until like, I don't know, a couple years ago. So that's where like my brain worked, was just like character and dialogue and how to be an actor, a stage actor. And so when I got there and I was like, all right, I'm going to be Link. Link doesn't wrestle. So I have to do these specific things. Like, my moveset is only things that Link would do. And so like, it really, I don't know, kind of pigeonholed me into like this, like, all right, so I can do like a spin attack, and I'll do like the backflip, and I'll do like axe handles because he has a sword. And yeah. And then eventually like started being like, all right, now let's be Link as a wrestler. And then started to incorporate my other, like how I normally wrestled into it. And I think it really helped me because it allowed me to get rid of a lot of the garbage that I was doing, just because like, I'm a wrestler and I do this garbage. And like,
gotta get your shit in,
Yeah. Finding that happy medium really helped like wrestling anywhere else, because they're just like, oh man, I don't have to do all this bullshit that I was doing because I thought like, this is how you pop a wrestling crowd. I was like, no, don't play to the wrestling crowd, play to a crowd. And yeah, Hoodslam and reworking my offense definitely helped me be able to get over at a wrestling show, whereas before I was trying to get over at a wrestling show.
Yeah, I like that that it kind of happened twice in very seminal moments of your career. Like you said in the beginning, being forcing yourself to work around restrictions such as having a feud with someone much bigger than you. So you're forced to only do this. Then you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to be Link. So now I'm forced to only do this.
Yeah.
And you're like, so I like how your brain works, how you're like, okay, hold on. Let me just strip away all the other shit. Let me just do this and then build out from there.
Yeah. I think the nice thing about like my mentality and my lack of self-esteem is that I never think that I'm doing anything like correctly. So I have no problem being like, this is how I've always done it. It was probably fucking terrible anyway. Let's start over. And yeah, that's been very helpful for me of just, not taking what I do to be like the be all end all. Like, I know I could be better, and better might mean like completely different. So I'm never afraid to just be like, all right, well, I'm not going to do any of that anymore.
And so that kind of, it is a nice, humble attitude to have. However, wrestling is very like strong personality wise, especially when it comes to like the social aspect of it. So
Sure.
what's that like when you're kind of have a little bit more of an easygoing attitude and you're in locker rooms at various independent shows with people who are not as as nice, basically?
Sure. I mean, at Hoodslam specifically, which is obviously much later in my career, like, it's so fucking chill. Like, everyone is just there because they want to be there. No one is trying to be the star of Hoodslam. Hoodslam's the star of Hoodslam. Like, the show is the star of Hoodslam. So just being there is the best. It's just the fucking best. But earlier on in my career, it was like, I wasn't that guy that was trying, like, I know this is called the Indy Handshake, but the Indy Handshake I hated it. I hated, like, having to be like, you got to shake everyone's hand. Be like, I don't want to talk to anybody. People are the worst.
We always just thought it was really funny. Like, we would always just laugh at, like, these giant muscle-bound guys being like, hello, how's it going? Like, this tiny little hand. It's just like, oh, hello. I forgot. There's someone we used to... I think like Donovan Morgan it was literally like it was like the tips of his fingers. Like, it was so like, I forgot who it was, but it was just made us laugh. Like, it was like, it was so strange.
Yeah, man. Coach Nugs would like give you just like a finger. Be like, what's up, cuzzy? And you're just like, what? Thanks. I don't know what to do with this. But yeah, I don't know. Like, you get assholes and you get like people that just crave that attention. And my personality type, I took a personality test and found out my personality type is adventurer. So basically, like, if someone gives me like right now, if someone gives me an opportunity to like speak, I could do that all day. I don't have a fear of public speaking. I don't have a fear of the spotlight. But when it's not my turn for the spotlight, I'm not trying to grab it. So in a locker room, I'm just going to sit off to the side and, talk to the people that I already know. I'm not out there trying to like make friends and like cause waves and like talk to the promoter and be like, this is why I need to politic my way into getting a belt. I'm just like, hey, I'm just happy to be here. Don't talk to me. I got to wrestle. So I never had an issue with anybody because I kept to myself for the most part. But it also didn't help me like get outside bookings because I kept to myself so much that no one was just like, hey, you know who I really like? That fucking Anton kid. Like, no, everyone's just like, oh, right, him. Yeah, I remember him sitting by himself, putting his gear on like way too early. So it wasn't bad because I didn't have heat with anybody, but at the same time, like, yeah, no one was just like, I fucking love this guy and we have to put him on our show.
So how did you morph your Link character from being just the basis of the video game to like what it is now?
It through the caution, doing the caution, because basically, like, once Link got over at Hoodslam, and I realized like I got like 4 moves, and I can't put on a bunch of Hoodslam matches with 4 moves. So I started expanding it slowly and trying to make sure that like they still made sense with the Link character. And then at the same time, we started doing the caution, and that was getting over like as being like a comedy thing. And so at some point I was just like, all right, Link's going to start being a little silly, like, because the Anton character is kind of a fucking idiot. And so that just slowly like kept getting sillier and sillier until at some point I was just like, there is no difference between these two characters other than like I dress as Link for one and I don't for the other. And then at Hoodslam, we just like decided to drop the Link character so that the caution could actually like be at Hoodslam, because it was just like anywhere else until this point. And then it was just like, all right, swerve, my name's been Anton Voorhees this whole time. I'm a great actor. That's why you thought I was Link, because I was playing the character so well. And yeah, then it was just like Anton and Link are just basically the same person.
When you're doing this kind of thing at Hoodslam and you put on these grandiose shows, what do you think, in your opinion? Because Hoodslam is Sheik's baby, but in your opinion, where do you see Hoodslam going? What is the next step for Hoodslam?
Right now in this time, that's a really hard question.
Yeah, I guess this is like with the caveat of like, there's a vaccine, lives are saved, and shows are regular again, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard because like we were weekly before the pandemic, and we were doing multiple different shows. We had 2 Hoodslam shows a month, plus the glam show, plus the basically the cosplay show, Sexy Good Time Wrestle show. And so like we had a bunch of different avenues we could go down. But I think our main goal was to be like, hey, you know how we're putting this out for free on Twitch? Maybe we should start doing like more pay-per-view type of things to hopefully get us out there further than just like people that happen to hear about us word of mouth to go and watch us on Twitch. I mean, we kind of started traveling a little bit. We did a Vegas show. We started like officially doing like Hoodslam travels to pro wrestling down south, and like being like, hey, we're Hoodslam, we're taking over, invasion. So I think just like slowly expanding out was kind of the plan, and hopefully that, we can start doing that again. But yeah, it's hard to say, because who knows when wrestling's even going to be like, legal again.
Yeah. And that's actually a good thing to talk about. So for someone who took a break, came back in, the bug got you again and got you back into wrestling, now you have this whole new character. Everything's great. Now COVID happens.
Yeah.
Like, what's your mindset now where it's like this time I didn't plan to take a break. This time the break is just happening.
So the shittiest thing about this pandemic for me personally is that a year ago, a week from today, I broke my wrist in a match. And so I had to stop wrestling last November, but was still able to host Glam and occasionally host the Sexy Good Time Wrestle show. So I was still like, still making my face seen and just like getting to perform. And then the shutdown happened. And I was like, no, now I have nothing. And so like the hardest part about it is like, I broke my wrist and was like, all right, my comeback needs to be big. My comeback's going to be special. And now my comeback is everyone's comeback. And it's just like, shit. now I can't be like, I'm back. Because we're all back. Like, yeah. So I think that's like something that I'm trying to figure out is how do I still make an impact that I feel is significant enough, because I don't want to just come back with everybody. Selfishly, I want my comeback to be something that, makes me feel like sitting at home for a year was worth it. So yeah, it's been a little rough on the mindset of just like sitting around, but at the same time, not rough enough, I guess, because there are wrestling shows, my buddy D-Rogue's getting out there, and my pal Juicy's getting out there and wrestling. And like a part of me is like, man, I'm a little jealous you guys are getting on shows. And D-Rogue's like, oh, do you want to get on a show? And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm not that jealous. I don't want to get on a show right now. But I wish shows were happening all over the place, and I can't wait to get back in the ring and kind of reinvent myself again. Probably like figure out how to make the character that I had even more meaningful.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like, we're in California, so for us, like, there's nothing going on. But like then you look at like GCW and a bunch of stuff is like running, and yeah, I kind of get that thing where I'm like, because I work for an airline, so I can fly to any one of these places,
sure,
pretty cheaply.
Yeah,
but I'm like, like I get like the idea where I'm like, even like okay, so for instance, like Joey Janela, he missed out on an AEW Dynamite he was supposed to be on because someone at a GCW show had COVID and they had to contact trace, and he was like, well, can't make it to Dynamite because of this. And it's like, so I get that they're trying to make it as safe as possible. And Sheik just went to the one over there, and I get they're trying to make it safe as possible. It's just it's so I'm not like pro or against it as of now. I'm more like trying to think like how safe can they make it? Like that's so it's I don't know. It's a weird like push and pull I have in my brain.
Yeah, and I feel that like I'm back in the ring. I'm over at Stoner U with the Stoner Brothers, and there's training going on. It's like that's cool, and then every once in a while, like someone new shows up, and they're just like, "Hey, can I get some ring time?" And it's like, "Yeah, of course." But who have you been around? I don't like it. Because you don't want to say no, but at the same time, you're just like, I don't know, are you sick? We had a little pod here. You're breaking in.
Do you think now, when you do work other shows, or when you did work other shows, I guess I should say everything's going to be past tense now. When you did work other shows, was there any switch you had to make? Like, if you're working an East Bay Pro show, like, are you changing how you're wrestling or what you're doing from when you're doing Hoodslam?
No, but I should have. There were a lot of matches, like looking back at when Ian and I were tagging, like where we just wrestled like it was a Hoodslam, and the crowd at East Bay is like enjoying it, but at the same time they're like yelling at the referee because there's 4 people just beating the crap out of each other for like elongated periods of time. There's like, get control, ref. And the ref's just like, they're not listening to me. Like, we've definitely made referees look bad because we just were like, yeah, this is how we wrestle. Especially if it's like me and Ian against, Matt Carlos and Joe DeSol, who wrestle as Ken and Ryu, who we've wrestled 1,000 times. Like, we're just like, hey, let's just do our greatest hits from all of our matches in this match. And then it's just chaos for a referee. So, but
at that point, you're just like 4 kids in a classroom that are all friends who are just egging each other on. You're just like, well, now we're going to do this.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do about it, ref? Obviously nothing. The funniest thing about like a Hoodslam style is the Caution got booked against the Honor Society, Sir Samurai and Drake Frost. And when I was told that this was the match, I was like, in my head, I was like, this is going to be ridiculous. Like, Sir Samurai is silly. Me and Shane are silly. So you're going to put us in a match. This is going to be a silly match. And we came up with a bunch of dumb ideas. Like, my philosophy on wrestling has now become like, not like, how do we steal the show? It's been like, hey, is this too stupid? Like, that's my question. I say that when I'm planning a spot, like, out loud so many times, just like, hey, is this too dumb? Like, but yeah, the match ended up like, we're yelling at each other. So Samurai and I are just like not wrestling, just yelling and pointing and like flipping out. And then like, I'm just like, you know what? I'm not even going to wrestle you. And like, I go and get some tape and I tape across the ring and I'm like, this is my side of the ring and you can't come over here. And he's like, oh yeah. And he takes the tape and he makes like, now we have like a cross in the ring. And he's like, well, now this is my side. And then like someone calls like the floor is lava. So now we're only on the tape. And anyway, we have like a lava match where we're trying to wrestle each other on these 2 lines. And the crowd shit their pants. Like, they loved this shit. They're just like, this is so fucking stupid. but they were all in on it. And then afterwards, the promoter was just like, I didn't like that. I thought I booked the Caution versus the Honor Society for like a hard-hitting good match. And I'm just like, why? Why did you think anything besides what we did was going to happen? And like after that, like there was a rule at the company, no lava matches. Like
that's a specific rule.
And the crowd would chant lava match every time we would come out. And it's just like, sorry, we don't like fun here, everybody. So
I never understood like the people that fight against something that's over.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like it happens all the time now with like the old school guys, like who shit on, guys like Orange Cassidy.
Sure.
Where they're just like, bullshit. Well, it's over.
Yeah.
And if you talk to any old school, super carny professional wrestling guy, he'll say all that matters is what's over. And that's like, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
Like, sorry that your shit's not getting over, but like, hey, what are you going to do? But so have you gotten any, like, wrestlers are like anyone else. Like some people will say shit behind your back and some people will say shit to your face. Has anyone been like, what is this bullshit you guys are doing?
Not to my face. Like there's a lot of people that hate Hoodslam, thinks that it's garbage and silly and we're making a bad name for wrestling. And I've gotten to a point where if people want to say like Hoodslam doesn't count, Hoodslam's not professional wrestling, I'm like, okay, call us something else. Like that's fine. You could just say that's Hoodslam, that's not professional wrestling, and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing Hoodslam, and people are gonna like it. Like, and that's fine with me. But yeah, no one's ever like come up to me and been like, hey, you're doing awful shit. Like that promoter told me like that match was too Hoodslam, which I'm just like, it was the Honor Society, man. Like they're not Hoodslam. Like they went along with it, so they didn't think it was too Hoodslam. But yeah, no one comes up to me to say like what we're doing is garbage or what Hoodslam's doing is garbage or anything like that. I just know that there's a lot of people that just think that what we do doesn't count. Just like, oh yeah, they have really big crowds, but that doesn't count. We have 200 people. We put on a good show. They had 800 people, but that doesn't count because it's not wrestling. And that's fine. Everybody wants to feel superior. And if that's what makes someone feel superior, like, well, they don't count, so we're better. I'm fine with that.
And I'm going to venture just a guess that the amount of people who say this, chances are they've seen clips, they've seen some GIFs, and they've seen some pictures. But I highly doubt they've ever actually sat and watched like a couple matches in a row of a Hoodslam show.
Yeah, and like, how there's those really cool people that, go online and write their opinions and give matches like star ratings and stuff. I've definitely seen that for Hoodslam, and they don't like it. They're just like, this isn't what I want from wrestling. Like, they go in with the attitude of like, I know I'm going to hate this. And then they prove themselves right. And they're just like, yeah, this is dumb. I hate this. They threw invisible fireballs as Ryu and Ken. That's so stupid. And that's fine. Like, you can't please most wrestling fans, I think. So
that's definitely true.
So we don't cater to wrestling fans. We cater to people that just want to see something and be like, this is insanity. That's all we want. Like, and we're going to get some wrestling fans. We're going to get some deathmatch fans. We're going to get some fans of just like cartoons and nonsense. And that's fine. Like, we'll take this hodgepodge of people and say like, these are our Hoodslam fans. So I'm very content with like anyone that says Hoodslam doesn't count. It's just like, that's fine. We don't have to count.
I wish people would look at wrestling the same way they look at other media, like movies or music or anything, because like take any like horrible, like butt rocky, horrible thing that I just hate. Like Like, give me like a 5-finger death punch. And I'm just like, ugh, like, get it out of my face. I don't like this shit. So for me, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm going to check out their music video. I don't like this. I know I don't like this. You know, I don't like this kind of music.
Yeah.
Why would I review it? Why would I look at it? Why would I try to judge it and compare it to the things I do like? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. I don't go into a movie genre that I don't like and be like, well, this, you know, I don't like Hallmark movies. Should I sit there and try to judge them alongside The Godfather and be like, well, obviously the plot holes were like, who gives a shit? Like that to me, like, it bugs me that people do that with wrestling, because they make, like you said, they make it seem like, well, no, I have this very specific window of what's silly, what's not too silly. You know, that's okay. That's not. I mentioned it on here before, you know, Cornette's Mr. like, well, this is silly. This is dumb. You carried a tennis racket, bro. Like you know, it's, I don't know what to tell you.
Sure.
We've all done silly things. This is silly. This is silly. The WWE had the Undertaker shooting lightning from his hands.
Yeah.
And for some reason that was fine. But I don't know. To me, that like I said, I just wish people would treat it like the buffet that it is. That's what I love about wrestling. You know, I love watching two strong style Japanese dudes forearming the shit out of each other and watching sweat come off. And I also like watching a spot fest where Jack Evans does, you know, a 620 and lands, you know, on top of his head, on top of someone's chest. I like watching all kinds of shit. I don't understand why we can't just all enjoy everything. And that has been your PSA from Paul as I've gone on for far too fucking long.
Oh, good. I mean, I'm all for everyone having an opinion, and like, I'm never going to tell someone that their opinion is wrong. Like, if someone tells me Hoodslam sucks, I'll just be like, you know, that's how you feel. And that's fine with me. That doesn't hurt my feelings. And I don't think that you're a bad person for thinking that what I do sucks. Like, it's not for everybody.
I think people need to learn how to say, that's not for me.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. That's just not for me. That's not for me. But with that, brother, the booker has ran out. They said it's time to take it home. So I have a nice list of questions here to end the podcast. Take as long as you want. There is no, you know, hard rules here.
Yeah.
But let's start off with any favorite road stories.
Oh man. I have a few, but I'll try to figure out which one I want. Okay. So one thing I want to say, it's not a great road story, so I'll tell another one, but there was a trip where Sheik and I flew down to pro wrestling, wrestled, and then we met up with Serial Man, and we drove from LA to Party Hard in Arizona. And this is not hyperbole. This is not me blowing smoke. This is me saying we literally talked about Boone, Sweet Boone, the entire 6-hour trip. Like, I don't know how it started, but we talked about Boone and his wrestling and his character and where he's going, and the entire trip was just like no pauses, no like It was just constant like, yeah, Boone, yeah, I love Boone. Like, yeah, so that was one. I think my favorite road story was my second trip up to BAW, which was also my last trip to BAW because they stopped running shows after that. On our way back home, we went through like a drive-through safari, like a zoo where you stay in your car and you drive around. And so we're there, and we got Hellfire in the front seat driving, and Sean Sims in the passenger seat, and like me and Derevko in the back. And we get to a place where there's like ostriches or emus. I don't remember which one it is, but we're driving along, and then like we see, let's say it was an ostrich. We see an ostrich like walking over to the car, and everyone has their windows down. And this ostrich is just like coming up to the car, and it's got its mouth open, and it's just staring at Sean Sims. And Sims is just like, hey, this thing's getting close. And Hellfire locks the windows. And Sims is like, hey. Just crawling into Hellfire's lap as this thing just is creeping with its mouth open the whole time, just coming at him. And then we drove away. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing that's happened on the road.
That's incredible. Oh, I love that. Uh, I always say on here that I consider wrestling to be a very creative thing, besides being very physical. Besides wrestling, what is your creative outlet?
Yeah, I had to figure that I had to figure that out. It was acting, but after a while I just like wrestling takes its toll on you. Like you're bumping, you're getting hurt, there's the politics, like everything about it. But hopefully at the end of the day, you still love wrestling enough to be like, this is worth it to me. Theater, I started getting into a place where I was I was with really talented people, and it got to a point where their talent level was way bigger than mine. Like these are people that went to school for acting and singing, and these people are all like playing piano by sight and just like being like, "Oh, what are my notes? This," and I'm just like, "Oh man, you guys are way better than me." And just putting in the time to like learn like dancing, which I suck at, or like learning like really complicated harmonies, and just like the effort that I was putting in and how much time it was taking away from wrestling and from like my girlfriend and whatnot. It just got to a point where I was like, this isn't worth it to me anymore. Like, this is too hard. And I don't feel rewarded because I always want to get better. But I also don't want to just like go to, learn how to sing at, 37 years old. I don't have that in me. So yeah, I really had to figure out like what is my new passion. And I decided that I was going to try to get into making videos. And so I got into video editing and trying to like write scripts and stuff like that. And so I made a little YouTube series, and that definitely kept me, it kept me happy. It helped me release whatever that thing is that sits in my heart when I haven't performed in a long time. So yeah, I guess just performing in general. It doesn't have to be wrestling, but I need to be performing and entertaining people in any way, shape, or form.
I know what you mean about like there's a certain discipline that comes with practicing something over and 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 over again, where you're like, in order to be really great at this, like I play guitar, I've always played guitar, but I've never been the type who could sit there and practice runs and scales for hours on end. I just can't. My brain just won't let me do it. I shut down immediately. I'm like, no, this is boring. I don't like this. So like I do like singer songwriting stuff, because to me, I'd much rather sit there and spend hours thinking of a melody than sitting there doing that. And meanwhile, I have friends who you'll give them any instrument, and within a couple of days, they're like, well, I know how to do this on it now. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how? Like, and I'm just like, your brain is wired differently than mine. I don't understand that, No,
I definitely feel that, where it's just like, yeah, I mean, and I got that way with dance and theater. Like someone would just be like, oh, do this thing. And I'm like, I know I'm physically capable of doing this. I can do some crazy things with my body, but I don't understand how you're doing this. Like, it's just hard. So different.
What is your favorite move or hold that you do not use?
My favorite move or hold that I don't use. Man, that I don't use ever. Let's say ever. Probably like I'm gonna say a cradle pile driver. That Jerry Lynn cradle pile driver. I did it like twice as Mortal Kombat characters. For some reason in my head, I was like, Scorpion would do a cradle pile driver. But yeah, it's a move I've always liked, and just like was like, you know what? I don't want to ask people like, hey, can I give you a pile driver? Like, I'm not a big fan of asking people to do moves that I think they might say no to. I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna give you an insecurity. No one's gonna say no to that. But if I'm just like, hey, trust me to drop you on top of your head, it's like, nah, I just skip that move.
Yeah. What is your craziest or just some crazy fan interactions you've had?
The first one that jumps to mind is during the America's Most Hated days, Sheik, Derevko, and I were cutting a promo in the ring, and this old man who is probably like a veteran of some kind just like stands up and charges at the ring and is just like, "This is America. If you don't like it, you can leave."
Oh dear.
And like there's a picture of us like looking down at this old man, and Sims is like holding him back, and you could see on my face the exact question going through my mind of just like, do I have to fight this old man? Like, am I gonna fist fight this old man right now? And it's great because like Sims is like, "Sir, you need to calm down." And this old guy just grabs Sims by the throat, and Sims just like, "Hey, no, go sit down." Wow. But so fast went from like, "Excuse me, sir, you need to sit down," to just like, "Don't fucking touch me, old man. I'm gonna fight you now."
Holy crap. I love that. That's damn. Besides hurting you, what's the worst thing someone could do when you're working with them in a match?
Besides hurting me, put their finger in my ear. I had someone that did a wet willy spot, and I legit got so fucking mad. I was like, "We didn't talk about this shit. That is gross. I hate you." Put your finger in my ear. I know where your finger's been. It's been on this mat where my feet are. Like, don't put that in my ear, man.
Wet willies are disgusting.
I hate them. Oh man, I hate them. I hate wet willies.
But then like the other part of my brain is like just picturing like someone in the back sitting there like kicking their boots off. Fucking, someone comes up, "Dude, what's going on?" "Fucking got heat, man." What do you do?" "Fucking wet willy, man." It's
fucking put your finger in my ear. Shit's gross.
Bullshit. When's a time that you were legitimately surprised by a worker in the ring?
I like that question. Legitimately surprised by a worker. Pong, the pissed off nerdy gamer, formerly known as Arcade, he wrestled a match with Charlie Chaplin, who is Hoodslam's invisible wrestler. And he used to like break dance and stuff. Like he knows how to like move his body and manipulate himself. And he's also very Jim Carrey-esque in like his comedy style and like how he can contort himself. And it was amazing to watch him fight Charlie Chaplin. And I specifically remember like him being down. He might have been Johnny Cage at the time, but it was, still the same human being. And just like seeing him lay there and just like put his arm around Charlie and like be dragged up to his feet when like such a realistic, like, this looks like they have wires like picking him up off the ground. Like it was awe-inspiring to just be like, I believe he's wrestling an invisible person right now. He's manipulating his body in a way that I'm just like, yeah, someone lifted him off the ground. So yeah, that's the first one that jumps out to mind.
Has a booker tried to stiff you on money? And if so, what are some fun excuses they have given in order to do so?
That second and last time I went to BAW, I didn't get paid. And like, that was just like Hellfire being like, yeah, we didn't get paid. And I was like, oh, that sucks. I just left. I can't really think of another time where someone stiffed me. I've been pretty good about like making sure that I got my money. There was a time where I specifically didn't get stiffed on money, and it was outstanding. Ian and I got booked against the Suburban Commandos, the Stoner Brothers, and I think it was like that the Stoners got booked, and then they were like, "Who do you want to wrestle?" And they're like, "We want to wrestle the Caution." So that's how we got booked. And when it came time for everyone to get their money, they were like, "Oh yeah, Suburban Commandos, like, come and get paid." And like both of them were just like, "All right, guys, come on with us." And we're like, "No, they talked to you." Like, "No, you're coming with us because you're getting paid. Like they didn't leave any room for us to get stiffed or like gypped on money. He was just like, you're getting paid the exact same amount of money as us, and we're going to be there while it happens so that no one tries to fuck you over. And it was like, yeah, you guys are all right, twins. And now I'm like really good friends with both of them. But like at the time we weren't like super close. So it was just really cool that like they were just like, yeah, come with us where you're getting paid. There's no question about it.
What's a mistake that you made in pro wrestling, but in the end it turned out being the right move?
Ooh, interesting. What is like a botch or like a decision or what?
Yeah, like it's just something that when it happened you were like, oh, I really should have done this, or I should have gone with that, or I should have worked there, or I should have done that. But then in the end you're like, oh, it's probably better that it didn't go that way or it did go that way. Just like that kind of thing.
Okay. There was a time when I was like, so I said no to a lot of bookings because I am very introverted and just like, if I got booked and no one I knew was booked, I was just like, no, what am I going to do? That sounds terrifying. So I said no to a lot of bookings. And after a while, people stopped asking me if I wanted to work their shows. And it made me think like, oh, now I need to start asking to get booked. And I never did. I just didn't ask for bookings. And, a lot of people were just like, you have to do that. Like you have to go to shows and show up and put their ring together. And I'm like, I'm not against that, but I don't feel comfortable asking to be put on a show. And a lot of the people that I was working with, like, were asking to be put on a show. And since they were asking, the promoter, like, kind of had the upper hand and was just like, oh, you want to be on my show? All right, I'll give you like $5 if it's a good gate. And at the time I was like, I should be doing this. I really should. But then I got to a point where like someone's asking me to be on a show and I'm just like, oh, you want me on a show? I'm not wrestling for $5 like my buddy who asked you to be on the show. So it helped me kind of figure out like how to have the upper hand, which then once I started being like the booker for Glam, I was like, oh, now I understand how to like negotiate how someone gets paid. Which sucks because I basically gave everyone what they asked for anyway. I was like, yeah, you want to drive up from LA? You want this much money? Okay. Sure, that's fine. I was bad at haggling when it was me giving people money to wrestle on the show because I'm just like, yeah, you're probably worth it. And if you're not, I won't book you again. That's easy.
There you go. What's the hardest you've laughed at an indie show?
What is the hardest Oh, okay. So once again, Boone. Fucking Boone. So we're doing a match. It's me, Sheik, and Boone against the Stoner Brothers and Shotzi Blackheart. And when we were going over everything, we were just like, all right, when we get to like, the shotgun finishes, it's going to be like Anton hits this and, Scotty hits this and then Sheik hits this and blah, blah, blah. And Boone was like, all right, Boone, what are you going to do? And he was like, I'm going to do a springboard X Factor. And we're like, cool. That'll look great, Boone. This is going to go well. And so we're doing the match and we are like maybe like 5 minutes into the match and we're getting into like the dive out spot and Scotty's sitting in the corner and I'm about to like run and give him like an inverted cannonball. And right before I start running, Boone runs in front of me and does like the springboard and goes for this X Factor to no one. Scotty's sitting down in the corner and he just fucking flies across the ring and just lands on the ground. And we all look at him and then we just continue the spot. And afterwards we're like, what are you doing? He's like, I thought it was the X Factor spot. And it's just like, who were you doing it to, man? Like, yeah, that is the magic of Boone, and that is why we talked about Boone for like 5 hours straight, is because you never know what's gonna happen with that guy. Anything can happen.
You see a lot of gimmicks when you're working different indie shows. What's the worst gimmick you've seen?
So I'll give you a lame answer, and hopefully I'll think of a good answer. But the lamest answer is just like wrestler guy. There's so many people that are just like, yeah, I wear tights and I'm wrestle and I'm going to be the best wrestler. And it's just like, yeah, that's fucking most people, man. Like, what's your character? Show me something more than that. That's my like honest, real answer. It's just like, I hate just wrestler guy. I got my trunks on. I'm ready to go. Cool. Neat. But like the over the top type of thing, what is the worst thing that I've seen? I'm sure there's something terrible sitting in my brain somewhere. I'm going to say this because I love him to death, but I'm going to say the talk of the town, Joe DeSole, and that's just his gimmick. Just like, yeah, I'm the talk of the town. And everyone's like, what does that mean? He's just like, talk of the town. But I love Joe DeSole, and I think he does make it work. And I think a part of it is like, what is that? Like the asking the question of what does it mean is a part of it. Cause you're just like, yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Fuck you. It makes you want to dislike me. So I think it's kind of brilliant, but yeah, it's also just like, that's your moniker, the talk of the town, and you do this. Okay.
I love that. Talk of the town, playing some invisible castanets.
Yeah. Fucking two Muppets just having a conversation.
Have you worked any cards with any bigger guys, former WWE, WCW, blah, blah, or just big name indie people that, like, once again, you don't have to say any names, but people that thought they were bigger than the show, acted like they were bigger than the show, just rubbed you the wrong way, just the way they carried themselves, that kind of thing?
So I did shows with someone that wasn't a name at the time and then became a name, but he was a piece of shit back in the day. He rubbed me the wrong way and said some things that I was just like, dude, I know I'm green, but I would kick you in your fucking mouth right now if I wasn't. And he's a guy that I already know that you don't like because I heard your interview with Kenny K. So, oh,
that's good. Okay, so I already know who it is. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So that guy's a piece of shit. But yeah, he wasn't a big name. That first show that I went to at BAW, like, that show was crazy because it had so many fucking names on it. Fucking The Godfather was there, D'Lo Brown was there, Molly Holly was there, New Jack was there, Kidman was there. It was just like, this was my first show ever, and I was just like, oh.
Now I'm seeing why they only ran a few times.
Sure. But Spike Dudley was there, and I don't think he's a bad guy, and like, I find this funny. Like, I don't think he has an ego or anything, but I showed up there and I was wearing a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And the only reason I have it is because there is a scene in the movie Chasing Amy where what's her name? Joey Lauren Adams has a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, and I was like, I like that jersey, and I bought one. Like, I don't watch hockey, but I'm wearing my Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, and Spike Dudley just like comes up to me, and I'm like, oh shit, hi, I'm Anton. And he's just like, is that like a gimmick thing, or do you actually like the Maple Leafs? And I was like, oh no, it's not like my gimmick. And he's just like, you're a fucking idiot. And he walked away, and I was like, awesome, nice to meet you. But like, I think it was just like he hates the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's fine because I don't fucking care. But yeah, that's the story that sticks out of just someone being a dick. But maybe he's a nice guy. I don't know. I hold no ill will toward him. I just think that's really funny that he's just like, you're a fucking idiot. I was like, oh, thanks, nice to meet you.
Oh, you just know the conversation is not going to go well. At the beginning's like, so what is that, like a gimmick? And you're like, oh God, what is this going to be?
What's the right answer?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll finish off with this one. I call it the touchy-feely question of the podcast. What is your pure joy in wrestling? Something before, during, or after the match that you get goosebumps. You go, this is why I fucking love this business. This is why I love wrestling.
Let's see. Are you familiar with Bo Burnham?
Yes.
The comedian? So in one of his specials, so this is a really weird tangent, but I promise I'll bring it back.
I love it.
In one of his specials, he ends it by doing this like Kanye West style, like it's not a song, but he's got auto-tune on his voice and there's music behind him and he's speaking as if it's a song, but it doesn't rhyme. And he's just saying random shit and it doesn't make any sense. He's just like, he's talking about Pringles and like how you can't put your hand in a Pringles can. Like this is what this is mostly about. So it's just silly nonsense. And then every once in a while, he'll interject some actual truth of just being like, you know, my brain's kind of fucked up and I feel very insecure at times. And a lot of people think that I have my shit together and I don't. But that's like really sparsely interjected into complaining about a Pringles can not being big enough to put your hand inside. And it just builds and builds and builds and gets like more intense, but silly, but kind of honest, but mostly silly. And then at the end, the music just stops and he just goes like, thank you. And like that last little thing, like I watched that and I was like, that moment of just like where it doesn't matter what it was that you said or what it was that you did, but you know, like that was everything that I just had. I just gave you everything. It's out of me and I'm done. Like that moment in wrestling where maybe it's a promo. I've definitely cut some promos where like I just felt emotionally and physically and mentally spent at the end of it and just been like, oh, I got all of that out. I didn't even know I had this in me, but now that it's out, I feel fucking great. I've had that after matches. I've had it after promos. And that's the moment as a performer that I live for, is to just get this shit out of me that I don't know any other way to get out of me. Talking about it, having a therapist, none of that shit has ever gotten something out of me the way that performing has been able to. So that is the thing that I live for with professional wrestling.
I love that answer so much. Thank you, sir, for being on the show. First, put yourself over. Where can people check you out on social media, buy shirts, any of that kind of stuff?
Sure. I think all of my social media at this point is the word link, the number 2, the word future, the letters FTF. Link to future, FTF. I'm kind of on Twitter. I suck at Twitter. I'm real bad at it. But every once in a while, I'll be like, hey, here's my Zach Morris hair. So I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitch. I stream some stuff once in a while. My T-shirts, hey, they're all Legend of Zelda themed. If you like a Legend of Zelda game, I probably have a T-shirt in that style. You can get all that stuff at the Hoodslam website, birdswillfall.com. Or just, email Dark Sheik. She'd love you to tell her that you want an Anton shirt. She's got them all. Yeah, check out my YouTube. Anton Voorhees on YouTube. I did a whole series of stuff where I'm trying to build an interdimensional communicator. If that seems interesting to you, check it out. They're funny videos. Some are sad. I cry in one of them. There's also one that's like 10 minutes of Broseph Joe Brody telling me how ugly my beard was. That was really fun to write. I came up with like 7 minutes of insults for myself. It was great. Check it out. Yeah, that's all my stuff.
Oh, and if in case anyone who's watching or listening to this isn't familiar with your work, just a couple matches that they should check out.
So there's a YouTube like video compilation. I think I didn't make it. My buddy Aaliyah Mia Garcia made it for me. And it's a whole one night tournament of just my parts in it. set to like a music video of some song that I've never heard of before. So that's on there. I think it's called Anton Voorhees, I'm Not Dead Yet. And it's a really cool edit of 3 matches where basically like people are just working my arm and you just see me get beat up more and more and more. And then I end up winning the East Bay Pro Championship at the end. So that's really cool. Some of my other good, like anytime the Caution wrestled the Stoner Brothers, that shit was always fun. The Caution versus Ken and Ryu were good stuff. I think somewhere is my match against Mike Matthews and Brian Cage, where I stalling German suplex Brian Cage. I'm very proud of that because he's a big motherfucker.
Yeah.
But yeah, like any of my matches, if you enjoy some silly wrestling and also some athletic and acrobatic wrestling, you'll probably enjoy an Anton Voorhees match. If you don't like fun, don't watch my shit.
And we're going to leave it on that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.